Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the 2021 season comes to a close. The Yankees lose a listless game up at Fenway Park against the Red Sox, losing 6-2. Again, it was a one-game playoff, and now the season comes to an abrupt end where, you had a little mojo going a couple weeks ago. The team was hitting well, and you had a good feeling about this game, but it all comes crashing down in a performance where Cole really gave you nothing, and of course he's going to get hammered, and the offense is kind of what it had been the whole year, home run to nothing. Couple home runs, great, but there's no one on the base, and again, the Yankees go down 6-2 in a very listless performance. So we'll extensively break down the game itself, plus look back to just the week leading up to the game and kind of how the Yankees ended up in that position, and those guys' general thoughts of the season in general, which again was a bizarre season mixed up with COVID, injuries, root canals by Domingo Germán, and we'll try to make sense of the season and see who's going to be back and who's going to get the boot. So the Yankees really shot themselves in the foot here. Now, the reason that the Yankees were the away team for this one-game wildcard playoff at Fenway is because they pretty much blew a two-game lead in the wildcard. Now, they got on a bit of a hot streak towards the end of the season. Went on a 7-game winning streak. Yeah, lost one, but then really, took it to Toronto, getting 2 out of 3 up there, up in Toronto. I don't know if they call it the Sky. Oh, yeah, it's the Rogers Center now. And it was good, for that series because, the Yankees really owed them one. Last time Toronto came here, they kind of blew the Yankees out in 4 games. So it was good to get 2 out of 3 against Toronto, kind of smack down them a little bit. And even the Boston Red Sox, they were struggling a little bit. To close out the season, they had 3 games against the Orioles as well as 3 games against the Nationals, and we all figured they would blow through that. That's not the case. The Orioles actually made a tough run on them as well as the Nationals, so really set up the Yankees. They were up by 2 games in the wild card lead, and all they needed to do was take care of business against Tampa Bay at home, and against the Tampa Bay team really had nothing to play for at that point other than maybe just being annoying to the Yankees. And of course, what did the Yankees do with that? Nothing. They blew a golden opportunity. The opening gate Friday night, lose 4-3. Okay, they had a little rally coming there late, but they were down 4-2. I mean, that's a game you got to win that game, the opening game. Just coming off winning at 2 out of 3 against the Toronto Blue Jays. Then comes the Saturday game where they just absolutely get annihilated 12-2. Weren't even in the game at all. I mean, you lose a game like that, Friday night, figure you're going to come back strong the next game, but you get flattened. And then finally Sunday, okay, yeah, they win the game, but really not really a graceful fashion. They basically go through 8 innings with only 1 hit, and finally put a little rally together in the bottom of the 9th, win the game 1-0 on really a Judge single up the middle, which is off the pitcher's glove, and get great Wade scored, but yeah, you won the game 1-0, but again, almost a very embarrassing fashion. I mean, Tampa had nothing to play for in that game, and they literally took 2 out of 3 of the weekend. And yes, okay, great, the Yankees won the game, but of course Boston also won their game against the Nationals in a comeback fashion. Now the Yankees rolled the dice a little bit in that Sunday game against Tampa Bay. Now everyone thought maybe going to start Cole for that game because at that point of the season it's the most important game of the year. I know you're looking at that Tuesday night wild card matchup. If possible, you want to have your ace, but Cole was available, and you think, well, if that's the most important game for the season, start him in that game. That's not what the case happened. They actually started Jameson Taillon, who had to exit his previous start in Toronto. Again, he was coming back from the ankle injury, and he had to be yanked out, and they figure, oh, well, he's done for the season. Turns out not the case. Now he started, only went a couple of innings, but him plus the Yankee bullpen was able to keep Tampa off the scoreboard. And then, of course, again, the Yankees were able to scratch that run barely in the bottom 9th to win the game. So that kind of set up great. You kind of rolled the dice there, and the Yankees were very lucky, and then it saved Cole for that Tuesday game in Fenway. Of course, during the regular season, Red Sox beat the Yankees more, so of course now Red Sox became the home team. So you went from the Yankees possibly hosting the wild card game, sitting pretty with 3 games left this season, a Tampa Bay team have nothing to play for, but no, they kicked the Yankees' butts 2 out of 3. Red Sox did what they do on their end, and both teams had same record. And of course, then the game was at Fenway, which it's asking a lot. It's at Fenway. It's a quirky, funky dimensions. We've seen Chapman, struggle there, and just in general, it's just a very uncomfortable place to play. And the Yankees just blew it, leaving themselves at the mercy of Fenway and 1 game. And yeah, you feel good with Cole on the mound, but again, it's a situation where the game should have been at Yankee Stadium. Now, heading to this game, even though it's at Fenway Park, there were at least some positive you can look to as going into this game. If you want to be a Yankee fan, you want to be confident. Of course, they went there the other weekend, just before the close of the season, and absolutely just decimated the Red Sox, swept them. Stanton was an absolute beast, so you figure Stanton's going to be very comfortable hitting that ballpark, as well as Judge, who's playing probably his best baseball of the entire season. Really has been carrying the Yankees as well, along with Stanton, but the two of them have been tremendous. And of course, again, you have Cole on the mound, you have Ace now. Of course, towards the close of the season, Cole didn't have his best stuff. He lost 2 out of the 3 last starts and kind of got beat up a little bit. Plus, he was kind of dealing with that hamstring issue, so you're not too sure really which Cole you're going to get, but still you just like the idea of Cole on the mound. And again, facing was going to be Nathan Eovaldi, who again, last time the Yankees faced him, they actually got to him finally after a bunch of fails in there. So again, going into that game, you feel relatively confident. And of course, with the Red Sox, they kept JD Martinez off their roster for that game, still dealing with a sprained ankle. Now the Yankees have some injuries of their own, which we'll get into, but at least, roster-wise, going into the game, and of course the Yankee bullpen, Chapman looked much sharper lately. About a month or two ago, he looked like a scared puppy on the mound. He looks much more confident. You have the emergence of Clay Holmes, who's been great for the Yankees, seems to have a knack of getting out of jams. Loiza's back, and same as him, he seems to have a good knack of getting out of jams. So you kind of have your full bullpen back, and let's not forget Chad Green, who really looked good, especially that final 3 games up in Toronto. Probably was, the balls coming out of his hand, probably the best the entire season. So you have kind of your full bullpen back. You have Cole on the mound. You have Stanton there in Fenway Park. So that aspect of it, you say, wow, this could be really good for us. But again, the only problem of it's one game where you're one and done. And the Yankees are going to have some injury as well going into this game. Now, we finally, solved the unsolved mystery of what was wrong with DJ LeMahieu this season. Again, has not looked like himself at all. Now, I figured it was something to do with his thumb or his wrist maybe, because, at point he was a 240 hitter. He got it up to finally 280, but still wasn't that same guy. We kind of realized what happened is that towards the end of the season, he started having some hip issues and had to give him an injection. And it turns out he wasn't going to be available for this wild card game or the ALDS if the Yankees would be able to advance. And they said maybe he'll come back for the championship. But it seemed a situation where the season was going to be lost for them. He tried to get through it, but I guess the hip injury and try to swing it through, whatever, it's just not there. And plus now the Yankees had him playing third base when they kind of did the infield shifting around a little bit. So probably a good chance he was going to be done for the season. Now he was going to need some surgery in the offseason anyway, so it looks like he'll be getting that a little bit sooner. So, but at least for anything, we solved the issue with DJ LeMahieu, and hopefully this next year he looks like the real DJ that the Yankees gave a 6-year contract to. All right, so let's get into the actual game, the one-game wild card game up in Fenway Park. Bit of a frosty night, little bitter weather, a little late October, November-ish type of football weather that got mixed in there. So maybe a positive sign for the Yankees, but didn't turn out to be the case. Cole, frankly, didn't have as good stuff as all. Now in the first inning, he gives up a 2-run home run to Xander Bogaerts, and of course, he gives up another bomb later on to Kyle Schwarber. And then there's a situation in the third inning where he puts a couple of runners on, and then Aaron Boone has to make a decision. Yankees are already down 3-0, no outs, 2 runners on. So now, most cases for the regular start, you can leave him in there, let him, find himself. But the problem is with these, one game, do or die situations, you got to treat it like a game 7, and you got to basically go to all your bullpen arms if necessary. And that's what Boone did. It was the right call. Bringing in Clay Holmes, who, to his credit, got out of a major jam, was able to get a big strikeout, and then induces a ground ball double play to get out of the inning. And you go from one situation where you're down 3-0 with 2 runners on, nobody out, and to get out of there 3-0, don't give up any more runs. Probably figure gives the team a little shot in the arm, and it's kind of what the Yankees needed because they really had nothing, no answer against Nathan Eovaldi, who was absolutely nasty. I mean, the Yankees really couldn't touch him at all, really couldn't put any good hardwood on him until finally Rizzo breaks through, hits a solo home run, kind of one of those moonshot to the pesky pole home runs where could have gone fair or foul either way, one way or another. Luckily able to keep it in as a fair ball, and now the Yankees finally get on the board 3-1. Now after that, Aaron Judge hits a little infield dribbler, and unlike Gleyber Torres, he actually hustles to first base, gets on first, and now you have Stanton up who can tie the game with one swing, which we know we can do that, especially on Fenway, and he comes about this close to doing it. Hits a shot to the Green Monster. Fortunately, this falls a little short of going over, and what it becomes basically a glorified double. Unfortunately for Aaron Judge, he kind of took off on the contact, and he figured, look, you know what? Let me just go for it right here, and he does. Unfortunately, Kiki Hernandez relays the throw to Bogaerts. He throws home to Plawecki, and they nailed Judge at home. Now, Judge is the fastest runner. He made it a close play, but the only way you do that, everything had to be perfectly lined up, and the Red Sox defense had that perfectly lined up, and it's just a bad break, the ball off the Green Monster. So now you have Judge he's got thrown out at home, stand at second base, and it was a missed opportunity because you could have had second and third with only 1 out, and maybe a single there afterwards could tie the game, or at least you could get 1 run in and leave that inning 3-2 instead of they only leave the inning 3-1, and it was usually a huge disappointment. Now, after the Rizzo bomb and the Judge infield single, Alex Cora, the Red Sox manager, set himself up to be maybe the GOAT of GOATs in terms of just blown games in Red Sox history, and there's been a lot there. But Interesting move. Now, Eovaldi was this cutting through the Yankee lineup like nothing, and yeah, he gave up a home run, but it was just barely, a fair ball. It could have easily been foul, and it's not like Judge really put good wood on his infield single. It's an infield dribbler, so taking out Nathan Eovaldi after only 5 in 1 inning and only 68 pitches, kind of a gutsy call there. Now he brings in Ryan Brazier, and again, Brazier gives up that almost home run to Stanton. Now, turns out, they make a great play at home base, get Judge out, and of course after that, get Gallo to pop up. But that could have been a disaster for Alex Cora, where you basically Ace is throwing phenomenally. Okay, he just gave up 1 home run. You pull him out and you put a bullpen guy there, and he blows the lead, and you tied 3-3. So big moment for Cora, but to his credit, he made the right call on that, and it just worked out for him. But again, that could have been one of the historic, bad decisions in Red Sox history. And really for the Yankees, that was the only chance at a rally they had. The rest of the night, the bats were completely dead, yet Giancarlo Stanton hit a little cosmetic home run in the 9th, kind of an amazing opposite field shot. But that's really all they managed to cough up, 2 runs in the Yankee offense, and that's really the issue, not Garrett Cole. And the Yankees put Severino in there because, again, he's not really a starter anymore, but he couldn't provide the Yankees with some long relief. But he ended up getting touch up for a double by Verdugo, and then Verdugo come back to bite the Yankees yet again. Bases loaded situation against Chad Green. Verdugo delivers. Turns out to be a single, but it brings 2 more runners in, and then the Yankees go down 4-1, then they go down 6-1. And at that point, you figure, yeah, it's the Yankees, and they can always put a rally together with a grand slam. But at that point, you just know it's over for the Yankees. And then for the Red Sox, they just count out how many outs are left in the game. And if you want to look at the bigger picture here, it's the final score, 6-2, where the 2 runs were just 2 solo home runs. And again, repeat of last season for the Yankees in the postseason, same thing. There's, home run to nothing. And if guys are hot, it's great, you're excited, but nothing else. No singles, no doubles, no bunting runners over, no double steals, no getting walk on bases and starting rallies that way. It's just all predicated on home runs, and that's just the way the Yankees are built, and that's the way they live and die. And unfortunately, you die because in the postseason, you're just not going to get those pitches to hit that way. You're going to get very stingy pitchers like what Nathan Eovaldi gave you, plus a bullpen full of guys that a manager's going to go to that can throw funky arm angles at you at 99 miles per hour and wicked sliders at 89, 90 miles per hour that you're just not going to get those same home runs. So, we'll discuss later what the Yankees really need to do. They need to retool, but this is kind of what the Yankees are. When they win 13 games and they lose 7 games and they win 7 games, and a lot of this is predicated on Judge Stanton and hitting home runs. And in this game, you really got nothing from nobody else. Brett Gardner, if this was going to be his final game as a Yankee, kind of went out with a whimper with 3 strikeouts. That is, would be nice if he hit 3 home runs. Got nothing from Gio Urshela. Got nothing from Odor. Got nothing from Higgy, and then they put, of course, Sanchez later there to pinch hit. And of course, first pitch, he flies out, gives you nothing, and the lineup gave you nothing. It's really just, and that's why you're losing 6-2. And Cole could have been better. Could have been nice. He could put up zeros, but at some point, you got to start scoring some runs, and you got to give the Red Sox some credit with their bullpen. Again, Cora makes gutsy moves, takes Eovaldi out, and their bullpen was pretty much phenomenal the rest of the way. 11 strikeouts compared to the Yankees, who walked 7 batters, and the Red Sox didn't walk anybody. And again, they had the better bullpen. Now, you wouldn't think that on paper, but they performed better in their ballpark at home. They had their fans rocking and rolling. And now the Yankees and Brian Cashman, and of course, Aaron Boone, a lot of decisions to be made. Again, Cashman has 1 year left on his contract. Boone doesn't even have a contract, so we're not sure if he's back yet. And you have a bunch of players coming for arbitration, and as well a bunch of players you got to make some decisions on, because this team, this unit, it's good. It gets to the postseason somehow a little bit, but it doesn't go too far, and they got to figure out the puzzle of why that is. And it's just another season that ends up in the trash. Well, the Yankees won't be needing these, no postseason. And now, if you look at that, home play with Aaron Judge, now people may want to blame Phil Nevin. Why did you send him? Want to blame Judge? Why did you go? Why did you pull up? But as I mentioned before, it was a bang, bang, bang play. I mean, you needed so many things to line up for the Red Sox to make that work, like 5 out of 5 things, and it all happened. The ball just bounced off the wall just the way they needed to. Kike Hernandez caught it just in a good spot. He relayed it into Bogarts. He fielded it cleanly, threw it into home to Plawecki. Plawecki fielded it cleanly and tagged Judge out with about a foot to go there. So you really can't blame anyone for that one. It's just everything needed to go right for the Red Sox for that play to work, and they executed it, so hats off to them for that. And the Yankees, look, they just need to try anything because they were really, struggling to break through to put runs on the board. And I see a situation like that, can't blame them for being aggressive. Judge, he plays with passion. We've seen him lately, diving a lot in the outfield for balls. You saw, he last time Fenway slid into second and jammed his pinky. It's just he's playing hard right now. So don't blame either one with that. It's just more overall this team, this roster, the way they're put together, that it's not constructed to string along and be successful in the postseason. And just another example of the Red Sox just having the Yankees number lately. Really been sticking it to them this century. Of course, the Red Sox got their 3 championships compared to the Yankees 1. Of course, one of those championships includes the disastrous 04, where they came back against the Yankees when they were up 3-0. And of course, most recently, the Red Sox knocked the Yankees out of the 2018 divisional series, and of course, would go on to win the World Series. So, again, the Red Sox, I guess, maybe just making up for what happened in the last century. This century had this really been a thorn on the Yankees' side and kicking their butts. Well, there's going to be no postseason baseball at Yankee Stadium, but you can still come here to get your COVID shot. So let's get to the big train, Garrett Cole, the ace of the team, who came up a little short in this wild card game. Now, he was kind of getting hammered right away, even during the telecast and right after the game. People saying, you know what, he just hasn't been the same since the whole spider tag thing. And part of that's true as well. And also part of it's true, it's just, remember about a month ago or so, he needed to be yanked out of one of the games against the Blue Jays for having a hurt hamstring. And it seemed like it was a situation where he was going to go on the IL. Didn't happen. They just rested up and he came back. And one bad start, good start, bad start, but really hasn't been the same as well. So yeah, you could say maybe he just can't get the grip on the ball he wants to, especially, again, it was a little kind of cold and a little frosty air up there in Fenway, or it's just the fact maybe he's just not 100% pitching off a bad hamstring, that maybe he's just trying to gut through it. So kind of hard to look at it. Overall, can't really blame him for this. Again, he's been very good for the Yankees, phenomenal. This is just one game, it could be a best of 5 where the Yankees could have won the next 3. It could have been a best of 7 where the Yankees could have won the next 4. To say that your whole Yankee history and mantra and everything has to be predicated on one game is kind of ridiculous. But he's going to probably take a lot of heat for that, and there's going to be a lot of speculation with the using the grip and stuff like that. But we've seen him have very dominating performances after the whole grip thing became an issue. So it just could be a situation where he didn't have it that night, maybe the hamstring, or maybe a combination of many things. But the idea that this was all his fault is just kind of crazy. And again, here's a guy who wanted to be here. The fans wanted to be here. He's done pretty much everything right, said all the right things, never been an issue, and wouldn't blame him at all for this thing. Again, I would just blame more just the way this team is built, the roster, because even if Cole gave you 7, 8 shutout innings, well, you still need to score some runs, which didn't happen with the Yankees. And, hopefully with Cole, a full Yankee season under his belt. I know he had 2020, but that was kind of an abbreviated season. I think he'll be back. It'll be fine for the Yankees, and maybe they'll just have to, find some new type of, thing for the grip if that's the issue. But I don't think it really is. It's just, just one bad start for Garrett Cole, and Yankee fans think, well, you would never see El Duque get blasted and leave after the second or third inning. You would never see Andy Pettitte and stuff like that. Well, we've seen Pettitte get rocked a little bit. Game 1 of the 1996 World Series, got smacked around pretty bad, and of course came back in Game 5 and threw a gem. But unfortunately, Cole, since it was just a one and done, there was no opportunity to come back and redeem himself. Now, obviously, Yankee fans are bummed out, and everyone's in a bad mood. So try to take a little break, lighten up a little bit. Now, Section 420, Talkin Yankees, is very hip, very young. Stays with the young crowd, the cool kids, the hip hop crowd. It's very hip hopish. So I will take the challenge. That's hip. And now back to the Yankees. So now a lot of big decisions for Hal Steinbrenner as well as Brian Cashman, but mainly Hal Steinbrenner, because now you have to worry about Aaron Boone. He has no contract after this season, but also Brian Cashman. Now he has 1 year left on his deal, but again, for a GM, you want to hire your guy. You don't want a situation where, let's just say, Cashman's lingering around for 1 year, they bring in a new manager, and they decide to part ways with Cashman after next year, and now it's a situation where a new GM comes in with a manager which he didn't even pick. Very odd situation, very uncomfortable situation. So my feeling, again, and I discussed this in the last episode with Tom from the Yankee Center podcast, is that you're going to do 2 or 1 things. Either you get rid of both of them, which maybe a lot of Yankee fans want, or you're going to keep both of them. Because again, you're not going to bring a new GM with a new manager already here. You're going to want to bring in a new GM to let him hire his manager. That's just the way it works in almost all sports and all walks of life. So that being said, I just kind of feeling that Hal has a soft spot for Cashman, as well as I think they both of them like Aaron Boone. So if I had to guess, I'm going to say that both of them stay. They're not really good put on the season to really say that any other manager could have done anything different. Kind of been a weird season. And, Cashman, yeah, this is his team ultimately, but had a lot of things happen that really was out of his control. And then, of course, at the trade deadline, made some great moves where they didn't really give up any of the top 5 picks and brought in a Gallo, brought in Anthony Rizzo. And, well, let's not talk about Haney, they shipped him out anyway. But he was just a placeholder for Kluber and Herman until they got back. But overall, I just think Hal, even though, remember the team, early in this season when things were really going bad for the Yankees, Hal came out and said, yeah, we're bad, we're locked, but we have faith in that team, we have faith in Cashman. They all said the right things, but it just didn't seem like he would, in a situation where, he's going to let Cashman go. I just think the relationship is good there. So if I had to guess, I say, Cashman will be back, which means then I think this offseason they give Boone probably a 3-year deal. I don't think they give him a pay increase, but I just think they give him a 3-year deal, which is kind of what he got before, and this is kind of common in this situation. So let's do what we always love to do as a fan right away. Who should stay, who should go? Again, as mentioned before, I think, Cashman's going to stay. Again, Hal can kind of buy out that final year of the contract and tell him, get out of here. You haven't built me a winning team in like 11 years, or 12 years. What's wrong with you? But my chance, I just don't think that's to happen. I just think they viewed Cashman very highly, and he has done well, much better than in his earlier terms, in terms of doing scouting and getting draft picks and getting some good players up here. So he has stacked the farm system, so you have to take that into account as well, and that's Cashman there. And of course, Aaron Boone, I just think they like him. They just like his kind of chill manner, the way he just relates to the players, he gets along. Again, really a manager. Only time they really have any sort of input is maybe if someone gets hurt and they've got to make a quick decision, or maybe operating out of the bullpen, which guys you pick out of the bullpen. But even a lot of that is decided before the game. I'm sure Cashman and him go over all that stuff, scenarios and outcomes. So yeah, people always want to blame Booms for something, but a lot of this also has to do with the GM. The GM is really, for the most part, calling those shots, and that's just the way it is throughout baseball. So I think they'll both be back. So let's go around the horn a little bit. Brett Gardner, I just think that's finally it. The game one more year, and again, he picked it up in the second half. The season was looking miserable for him, but he did have a good August and a good September as well. Again, the Yankees don't get that position in a wild card game without Brett Gardner. But unfortunately, I just think, look, enough's enough already, and I just think that's it, because he's been around for a while, and you squeezed a couple months of him out of the end there, but at some point you got to cut the cord, and I think that's going to be it for Brett Gardner. And of course, we don't know what's going on with Clint Frazier. He got the vertigo, he's got glasses. He's going to be next season, but I think the Yankees will be fine. And I think if it's a situation where Gardner up here is preventing Estevan Florial from coming up, I don't think that's a good situation. I think we should see Florio finally, or see some of these young guys and give them a shot there. Maybe just change his team up a little bit where they could have a little speed on the base and put some things in motion versus just relying on Stanton's home run. So I think Brett Gardner's gone. Obviously Stanton's on the contract, so he's going to be back. Judge, one way or another, whether they go arbitration or from a long-term deal, he's going to be back. And again, he's the future of the Yankees, the future Yankee captain. I don't see any scenario. Now they say, well, you could get a boatload of prospects for him. Yes, that's true. I just don't see that happening. It would really be insane to see that happen. Now, Joey Gallo, who the Yankees got in the trade deadline, he has one more year left on his arbitration deal. So unless they deal him, which I don't think they won't. He'll be back, I'm pretty sure. And for him, he really didn't give you a good season, a really return. Not the Yankees gave him much up, but he had a few home runs here or there. But really down the stretch, gave you nothing in that game at Fenway. And even during the regular season, one of those, the Sunday night game where the Yankees swept, actually dropped an easy fly ball. Again, it could happen to anybody, and that whole game was sloppy. But Gallo, he'll be back next season, but I think, somewhat of a disappointment. On the other hand, his counterpart, Rizzo, who also came to the deal, it was great for the Yankees. He had to sit out a little bit with COVID, but he was fine. He had some home runs, played some great defense, gave the Yankees exactly what they wanted. The only problem with him is he's going to need a bigger contract. So, he's going to be a free agent, of course. So, and someone like him could command 5 or 6 years, over $100 million. I just don't know. I just don't feel like the Yankees are going to commit to that. I would like to have him back if I could have a choice. I just don't think the Yankees are going to pay up for that again, because their goal is to stay on the luxury tax, and they're going to have to spend some money in some other areas. I don't think they're going to spend it on Rizzo. I would like to be wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Gleyber Torres, still on the contract, still a young guy. He's only 24 years old, and you got to forget, it seems like he's been up here forever. He's still going to be there at second base, and for whatever reason, he seems more comfortable there. Again, not a good year for him overall, defensively and offensively, but once they made that move and put him at second base, it seemed to clear his head a little bit, so maybe he was taking his shortstop errors and issues to the plate with him, and that was kind of caused him to have some problems. So once he moved to second base, started swinging the bat much better. Had that little tiff with Judge on the Saturday game where they lost, where dropped strike 3, he didn't run out to first base, and Judge kind of gave him a bit of a talking to, and the fans let him hear it as well. But overall, Gleyber, he's making peanuts, and again, he's a 2-time former All-Star, still a young guy. you'll see him there at second base. Shortstop, now it's going to be very interesting, as I mentioned before. People, Trevor Story is going to be the hot ticket, and I think maybe there's a chance the Yankees, go after him. And if that's the case, if that's where you're going to spend the money versus Rizzo, I have no problem with that. So good chance we see Trevor Story finally at shortstop. And the Yankees were kind of kicking the ties with him during the trade deadline, but I guess Colorado's just asking for too much. So if you could just outright buy him, why not do that? And again, the Yankees are going to have some money coming off the books. So possibly Trevor Story there. And then, DJ LeMay, who's under contract. And, again, he has the hip issues. He's probably going to need some sort of off-season procedure to get that fixed. But most likely, you're going to see him there at third base. And then that kind of leaves Gio Shirley as kind of the odd man out in that situation. And either he walks, maybe, what his situation is. Maybe the Yankees use him in a potential trade. I'm sure someone will pick him up. Again, he's great defensively, good offensively. Just had a bit of a disappointing season. But, again, I just have a feeling that Gio will be gone. Now, behind the plate, Gary Sanchez. Again, I was here at the start of the season, and I really wanted him to be here, and I was hoping he would have a good year. Did not have the case. Yeah, he hit his 20 home runs, but still barely batting 200. Couple of miscues defensively as a catcher. Bouts of just not hustling as hard or just not being into it. And I just think the Yankees are kind of fed up with them. Yeah, I discussed it on the previous episode with Tom from Yankees Center podcast that the free agency pool for catchers isn't that great, so Cashman will have to get a little creative there. But it just seemed with Gary Sanchez, it's just not clicking with him. And you take this game and then Game 5 last year, the ALDS against Tampa, where Gary Sanchez did not start as a catcher, did not start the game. I mean, this is 2 years in a row where he's not starting the final game of the year. So kind of tells you something about him, and it's not a positive thing. So I don't think Sanchez is back next year. I just think that they had it with him. So they'll either have to go to the free agent market or Cashman's going to have to get crafty with a trade. And as for the pitching staff, of course, you got Cole in there. Kluber, I do not think will be back. They took a bit of a gamble on him. Again, it was only 1 year, $12 million. But he only ended up pitching like 1/3 the season. Gave you a no-hitter, a little thrill, but wasn't there really at the end with dependable with the guy you needed. And yeah, his last couple of starts when he came back, from missing half the season with the shoulder injury, he was barely giving you 5 innings. So, if that's the situation where he was auditioning for next year, I think the Yankees say, right, thank you, but they let the part ways. So I think he'll be gone. And of course, other than that, Severino came back strong this year. Yeah, out of the bullpen, he looks good. So I think he'll be there along with Cole as your number 1, 2. As for Herman, I think he, even though he had to shut down a little bit too, he's there in the mix. So I think you see Herman there, probably your number 3 type starter. And Nestor Cortez, he emerged this season. Again, he was kind of a reliever who kind of morphed into becoming a starter. Only gives you about 5 innings, that's fine. But I think he'll be there as a starter. And the other lefty will be Jordan Montgomery will be back. So rotation will be pretty good. I don't know if it's championship good, but it's pretty solid in fact. So that's the Yankees. So again, the only major addition I see from this team from this year, last year, is that probably get Trevor Story and probably part ways finally with Gary Sanchez. And with the season come to an abrupt close, the players can now go down to Florida and work on their tee times.